Snarvan Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome! It is time to continue my discussion on the various campaign settings of Dungeons & Dragons. Many date back to AD&D. We've been starting and talking about Spelljammer, Dungeons & Dragons Adventures in Space. So let's continue with it. Last time we were talking about your crew. Weapons teams is an important part of the crew we haven't discussed. So a weapon team effectively mans your weapons on your deck, your catapults, ballistas, your jettisons, and any crew can really man any one of these things without problems. Your crew, as part of their training, will be trained in this. You can get specialists, though, which are above and beyond these, and these specialists will grant bonuses to these weapons, make them more efficient, be able to maintain them better. So you might want to invest money in trying to purchase a few specialists to make your weapons just a little better. Typically, when you're on a decent-sized colony, you can usually find a number of specialists, 1 to 10, in about a standard month. So you don't find a huge amount of them, unfortunately. And when you hire them on, it's 6 gold per month to hire one on to be in your crew, traditionally. Now, most of these specialists will be trained in at least one type of weapon. And when they are in charge of that weapon, they can maintain that weapon, maintain its repair, keep control of it. They're going to be connected to one weapon at a time, and then grant their bonuses to that single weapon. Meaning that if you have multiple weapons, you're going to need multiple specialists. One per weapon to keep them repaired, keep them maintained, and to work and fire on them, granting, again, their bonuses. This specialist, when he's with the weapon that he specializes in, can grant a +1 to attacks with that weapon, as long as he's able to communicate with the rest of the weapon crew, talk with all of them. There's another advantage to this. Should one of your crew die, one of the weapon crew die, as long as it's not that specialist, they can still going as if they still had that crew member. They can lose one and still be just as efficient as they were. That can be a big advantage in battle when, well, one of your crew on a weapon might end up dying. Now, traditionally, a specialist is versed in one type of weapon. That means I might find a specialist. It might not specialize in the weapon I'm looking for, or the weapon I have aboard my ship. Granted, there is a chance that this specialist could be versed in more than one weapon. 5% chance that a specialist is versed in 2 weapons. Of those, there's a 5% chance that they're versed in 3 weapons. So that's actually a really, really low percentage chance that there's 3 weapons. But it might be. It's like rolling 2 20s in a row, basically. That's how difficult it is to have someone that's versed in 3. But when you're looking for a specialist, you might get lucky and find one that can use one of your weapons. Or 2 of your weapons. Then you just have to assign them. Now you as a character, if you've taken the right proficiencies and are versatile and can use one of these weapons, you can do the same thing as a specialist to one of these weapons. You can be on that weapon and granted a bonus. You can also be hired on by someone to do that if you want to get some extra money. The big thing here is, once you're on that weapon and using it, you can't do anything else on that ship. You can't be a captain, you can't be the helmsman, you can't do anything else. That's what you're focusing on because it's your specialty, it's what you're good at. Now let's talk about travel, because now we're moving on to some important information that's going to help you in, well, exploring the universe. We've talked about your ship completely. There are 2 types of speed your ship travels at. Long range and tactical. Long range is you traveling between planets, across the Phlogiston. It's just that. It's the large amounts of space you're traveling through aboard your ship. Long range. The other type of movement, of course, is tactical. Tactical is the short range movement that you're usually doing with, well, battle. That's traditionally when you're going to be using tactical movement. Now, most of the time, you will be traveling at the long range. Your helm propels you at massive amounts of speed. But your helm slows you down significantly when you approach another large body, a ship being example of a large body. So hence, you move into tactical movement because your helm makes you move into tactical movement. Now, granted, combat isn't the only time tactical movement occurs, but it is the most common time tactical movement occurs. Now, spelljamming vessel within a planet's atmosphere travels at 500 yards per round per point of rating. This translates into 17 miles per hour / 400 miles per day per point of rating. That is fast. Far faster than any other character you might encounter on Dungeons & Dragons would encounter. Someone on horseback is like an ant going at no speed whatsoever. There are people down on the ground that might not travel more than 400 miles in their entire lifetime, while you can do that easily in a day per point of rating. If you have a rating of 5, that's 2,000 miles in a single day. And this is in an atmosphere. We're not talking about in space, we're talking about in an atmosphere. Now, there is sometimes a need to, land. Vessels can have water landing, they could have land landing, but sometimes they don't have either. Then you have the option of crashing. The only thing about crashing is you might not be able to take off again. And crashing has its own rules, which I will be discussing. Now, taking off from a celestial body does require a little bit of, let's call it adjustment. The fact is you have to overcome gravity. Overcoming gravity is not like when we're overcoming gravity leaving our Earth. The spelljamming helm adjusts itself to overcome the gravitational resistance and basically ignore it. This takes a little bit of adjustment as long as the size of the planetary body is Class A or larger. This adjustment is, 1 to 8 rounds. After 1 to 8 rounds of a sort of warm-up period of your ship adjusting itself to the atmosphere, it ignores gravity then, effectively. The magic of the helm cancels it out for you, corrects it enough that you don't have to worry about it. Something smaller than a Class A, you don't actually have this warm-up period. So you can see there is sometimes nothing, you just take off and go, or you just have a little bit of warm-up, then you leave. Now, ship's maneuverability class that they have out in space is exactly the same as they would have in an atmosphere. So it's effectively the same as if it's flying, but instead of being in space, it's in an atmosphere. The only exception is the Class F ship that's in space. This will be considered, for the purpose of maneuverability through flying, to have a flying maneuverability class of E. This is straight AD&D stuff, so if you're using a different edition, you'll have to discuss how this will change with your dungeon master. For each point of rating, your ship will have a movement rate of 24. So it's per rating, it's got 24. And this is in tactical movement we're talking about. This is combat movement. And this high movement is so high, usually you don't have to worry about maneuvering or outclassing the speed of anything else you're dealing with. You'll just go fast. That it doesn't matter about the maneuverability a lot. Granted, that 24, you can go slower than, or you can hover. But the problem with this, it makes it easier for you to hit. If you're going slower, then there's a +4 to hit you in combat. If you're hovering, +8. When you're hovering, your maneuverability class is effectively 0. You are treated as if you're levitating when it comes to a spelljamming ship. Now, when taking off from a planet, it takes time to leave the planet's gravity well, to leave its atmosphere, to escape from it. The amount of time depends on the size of the planet. It may take just rounds, turns, sometimes even hours to leave the planet. And this is assuming you're going straight up vertically, not kind of maneuvering any, not going over, not adjusting yourself, nothing else, just a straight vertical rise out of the planet. That's how long it will take. There's a chart in the book that just lists the planet size, how long it will take. You're going to assume that landing, if you're not crashing, is exactly the same. Effectively, if you're crashing, you will probably take a lot less time, but then you're crashing. But landing, yes, will take the same amount of time. Atmospheric conditions can change this. There's another chart you can look up that effectively says that should there be certain atmospheric conditions, wind, precipitation. These things slow you down, slow up your ascent or descent into an atmosphere. And they compound. So if I have both rain and wind, they're both affecting me, both slowing me down, both making it take so much longer to get down to the ground or back up out of the planet. These are both important factors you have to look at when it comes to how long it's going to take you to land or how long it's going to take you to take off. But that's it for today. I first talked about weapon crews and siege weapon specialists, everything you need to know about them. Then we moved on to talk about the two types of movement. In particular, we focused on long-range movement today. I talked about doing it within a planet, including taking off and landing. In the next episode, we're going to talk about long-range movement in space and the phlogiston, before moving on to tactical movement. But if you have any questions, comments, anything you want to say, anything you think I left out, please leave in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe. I show support for the channel, the Empire, the work I do. If you want to show some extra support, you can always check out my Patreon, link in the description below. There's some great rewards there, helps to grow and improve the channel and the Empire. Regardless, until the next time, I bid you farewell.